What is up, everybody? We are officially on episode 7 of Talking Dogs podcast. If you're just getting here, man, feel free to check us out. All hunters are welcome here, man. Anybody who's ran dogs or running dogs, it doesn't matter the caliber or which level you run dogs. I'm here to just put out some good coon hunting podcast talk and go over some different subjects, things like that. And I just want to have a huge thanks go out to every single one of my subscribers and everybody who's come in and liked and subscribed and commented on my content, man. I am super, super happy with the turnout of how everything's been going. And we're going to keep on chugging right along. Um, Today's episode, I got a few things that we want to talk about. I got some list out here. We're trying to squeak out a little bit longer one. Throw me in your earbuds on your radio, drive, working, whatever the case may be. Um, Hope you guys still like the visualizer. But we're going to talk about walker dogs to start. Now, when I started coon hunting, the first coon dog that my brother ever got, he got one before I got one. But the first dog that he ever got was a blue tick. And then we, got real partial on blue ticks. And I was really a big blue tick guy. And I wanted blue ticks. And what ended up happening is my first walker dog came after I had already gotten a blue tick, right? So my brother had gotten two pups, and he gave me this blue tick pup, which is a great little pup. Took me tremendous amounts of work and a lot of learning and a huge curb I went through with that dog. While I had her, my cousin called me up and he goes, I have this buddy of mine who's got this walker dog. He doesn't want it. He said, you can have it, come pick it up, and if you don't like it, just, call it. So I go over there, meet my cousin over there, and I grab this walker dog. This walker dog was probably point blank the definition of a runt dog. Um, these scared us, skittish, most didn't want you to even look at it. If you even looked at that dog, it would cower in fear right there on the end of the chain. And as soon as I seen that dog, I was like, well, I'm taking this dog just to get it out of here. So I grabbed that dog up, got it back to the house, and I cut it in the woods. And it was a nice blanket back walker dog. Um, he was probably pretty. He's about one of the uglier dogs that I've probably ever owned. Super duper leggy, super snipey face, super tall. Just built goofy. But I liked them blanket back walker dogs. He's my first walker. I picked him up for free. He was second handed to me, and I knew I had my work cut out for me for that dog. Now, I cut the dog in the woods, and as soon as he struck up, he struck up quick. Push track, push track, push track. I chased that dog all over the countryside getting back. I think he was probably running trash. Um, but nonetheless, I right then and there, as soon as I heard that dog open up, I knew that I'm keeping this dog. I really appreciated the mouth on that dog. I appreciated how fast he got struck in, no matter what he was running. And it took me on a journey, right? So all the problems that I had with that dog is a lot of the reasons why I have all the information to relay on to you guys, and that's a lot to do with Hazard. Hazard was that's what I ended up naming that dog. Hazard was gun shy. Hazard was scared of coons. He was scared of people. Anything and everything you can think of, he was just plain blank scared of it. He didn't listen worth a lick. Could not call him out of the woods. Just you name the issue, I had it with that dog. I worked on that dog and worked on that dog and worked on that dog for years. Right there at the end, before I ended up, getting rid of him, I had him. He was good. He was a good tree dog. He'd tree up. He wanted, any problem you have with a pup running track backwards, slicking constantly, any of those issues, leaving the tree, he would leave the tree absolutely at a dead run if he heard you coming, just because all of the prior things that he had went through with the previous owner. He was just a dog that somebody would absolutely call if they didn't want to take the time to put in and put the work in. And I paid for it a lot of nights, following a dog through the woods 40 miles because he just will not quit running track and will not tree up. Um, Keeps leaving trees. I mean, the amount of headaches that I went through, the gun shyness, and all this stuff with that dog, really put the boots to me and really formed me as a coon hunter. And ever since that dog, even though he had all them problems, the walker dog thing just really grabbed a hold of me. I really, really appreciated the walker dogs. Even though I got a hold of me one that probably wasn't worth very much at the time that I got him. Um, so then my journey went on, and I ended up getting more walker dogs. I got another walker dog given to me by the same cousin. He had eat his dad up on a tree. He was treeing a bunch of possums, and they were knocking possums down to him. All in all, they basically said, "Well, you better come get him because my dad's gonna call him because he keeps eating him up." Never one time did I ever have a single issue with that dog on the tree, not once. But it was another blanket back dog. Now, I believe he was a wipeout bred dog, and the hazard was a Schooner River bred dog. And I believe he went back to some lipper stuff, and he went back, had a little bit of stylish stuff in him. Um, but all in all, and Yadkin River was another one that he had in his pedigree there. He actually had a pretty good set of papers on him, Hazard did. I didn't get the papers from him. I waited about 2 years because they told me when I picked him up, well, if you don't call him, then come back and get the papers for $100. So I kept him for about 2 years and went and got the papers after that. And then I picked up that Duke puppy, another good little blanket back walker dog, on paper dog. Paid $25 for him. Seen nothing but good things out of all these dogs so far. One thing that you will get in the walker dogs that I've seen more often than not, especially not only dogs that I've owned, but other people's dogs, like my buddy's dogs that I ran with and I hunted with and things like that. What we got and what you turned out to have is you had a dog that, for number one, it's fast. Okay, so they push track pretty fast. They're relatively more hot nosed. I've came across way more hot nosed walker dogs than I have any other, and I've came across some walker dogs that were so hot nosed that if they went in there and one wasn't in there within the past hour, they weren't striking it and they weren't not running nothing, and they come right back to you. And if they've been in there and they struck something, you knew they'd have it treated in a split second because it was right there somewhere. So them super, super, super hot nosed dogs in the walker dogs a lot. And for me, if you get a super hot nosed dog, it can go a really far away for you, especially if you have woods that are loaded up, right? So if the woods are loaded up with coons, then the walker dogs, the really hot nosed ones, they'll get you done and they'll get you under a lot of coons. Just because the sheer fact that they're out there and they're not going to pass over a fresh one for a little bit older one or one that's settled in a little bit. And they're also gonna, not net you much if you get out here and you cut them where there's not a whole lot of action or coons have been laid up or whatever the case may be if they're so hot nosed. Now, that's another subject for another day, is the hot nose, cold nose, medium nose. But all in all, and then my brother, he got a hold of a walker dog that was second handed to him too. It wasn't through the same cousin, but it was through one of his cousins, right? So it was a cousin of a cousin's dog that my brother got a hold of, and they told him the same exact thing. If you can't make this dog work, just call it. That dog, out of all the dogs that I have ever been in the woods with or been around, was a people biter. Now, whether or not we're going to talk about my cousins playing jokes on us, trying to find us these messed up dogs that are people mean and get us in the woods and get us bit and stuff, that's a totally different story for a totally different day. But I think that's kind of what was going on. They get these dogs, and they knew that there's people mean, and they try to get other people to get in there and get bit by them just to get a joke. But they got my brother that dog over to him. That was Tank was that dog's name. But he was just a brown and white Walker dog, right? He didn't have any other colors on him besides brown and white. Um, he was a people mean dog. Now, I'm not saying that the color is affiliated with them being people mean, but I think like these black and white dogs, these blanket back dogs that have more black in them than they do brown in them, there's a big difference in these two dogs because they come from totally different deals. And that's what I was kind of saying in the last podcast. I got a little bit real nitpicky and short about it, but I'm not trying to knock anybody's dog. You know, I've been in the woods with all shapes and sizes and colors of dogs throughout hunting, and for me, the most problematic stuff that I've ran into in these dogs has been out of the dogs that carry a lot of brown in their coat. Now, whether that's just speculation or that, like I said in the podcast before, is me just having a bias towards these blanket back or these black and white dogs. Um, for me, I feel like they come out of a different blood, right? They come out of a different kind of deal here. Now, there's nothing wrong with a good, tricolor Walker dog. Nothing wrong with any Walker dog, any shape or form. And I've said this 100 times on the channel. If they'll tree a coon, that's a coon dog. That's all you need. That's all you need to qualify for a coon dog is a dog that trees some coons. But the Walker dog stuff, Walker dogs have a long history. They go back. They go back to these porcelain hounds. They go back to especially these fox hounds. And what I kind of was trying to hint at in last podcast, okay, so you have the treeing walkers, you have the running walkers, you have the July walkers. You have all these subsets of Walker dogs that are bred, right? And when we get into the Walker dogs, there is so many of them, and there's such a big chunk of these dogs that are on papered, and then they get single registered, or you get these people that will hang papers, and hanging papers is breeding a dog to one dog, but on paper saying it got bred to this other dog. And this goes on not just within the Walker dog community. It goes on throughout all dogs, not just coonhounds. It goes through every single breed of dog that you can imagine this goes through. And the Walker dog stuff, definitely, without a doubt, they're good dogs, but I feel like they're so wide and they're so far out there that if you don't really understand what you're buying when you buy a Walker dog, you just don't know what you're going to get, because you can buy a half running Walker, half train Walker, and take a gamble on if it's going to tree. You can buy the July Walker and running Walker, and a dog just will never tree, right? And we can run down the list and just keep going and going and going with all these subsets, the big game ones, the ones that are bred for cat and bear and things like that. And the cat and the bear dogs, I think across all the coonhound breeds, they tend to just do a whole lot better on running track, right? They're more built for that because them big game animals like the bears and the cats, they cover so much ground, right? The dogs are looking for endurance, right? So when we get down into that, right? When we're talking about treeing coons, we're looking more short, snappy, quick little tracks ran. Sometimes the coons give them a problem and want to run them for a while, but a dog that can cover a good lot of ground with its nose and get something up a tree and not have its instincts work against it to where it wants to just push track forever, and that's kind of what it wants to do, then them are the right kind of Walker dogs to get a hold of. Them are the right kind of dogs to get a hold of any across any breed that we're going to do some coon hunting with. Now, in the Walker dogs, we can get a hold of these extremely well bred, extremely high caliber dogs to where you're probably going to be outmatched, right? It's a lot easier to get mismatched with the dog when we're talking about the Walker dogs, especially if we want to go out here and we're going to pay the good big money for the big name dog. It's very easy for us to get mismatched with a dog, and if we get mismatched with a caliber dog, or we're something like that, what's going to happen to us is, like I said, we're going to get circles ran around us. That dog is just going to give us a problem every chance that it gets, and that's just because we're kind of not prepared for that caliber of dog. Now, in the walker dogs, like, I love me a good walker dog, and I love me a good blanket back dog 100 times more than any other color on a walker dog. But I feel like, to me, those blanket back dogs, they come from something a little bit different blood or something. They just cut from a little bit different of a cloth. They seem like a more of a coon dog to me. And then you have the guys on the other side of the fence that are gonna say them brown dogs, the tricolor walker dogs, are gonna be more of that speed. But across all things, you know, it's just opinion, and it's color preference and color scheme on a dog. And I think everybody has their own, and I don't want you guys to get put off from my podcast or get put off from my channel because, I say something about my personal opinion, because I'm not pushing my opinion on anybody. That's for me and myself, and your opinions for you and yourself, and I don't knock anybody when it comes down to anything. But we should pay attention in all facets of buying a dog, of what we're getting. I think you just got to put a little bit more keen eye on it when we're talking walker dogs, especially when we look at this breeding and stuff. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about the next subject here. And this was a comment that I had for some video ideas. Now, I wanted to know what the difference is in a comp dog and a pleasure dog. Okay, so for a comp dog, what I think makes the difference, a stark difference between a comp dog and a pleasure dog, is a pleasure dog is going to have a one-speed motor on it, right? You'll cut it no matter night, day, cold, rain, shine. It doesn't matter. That dog has a pace, and it's going to run that pace. And it's usually more of a medium pace dog. They're going to be a little bit more slower, right, than a comp dog. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. If we're looking for a good pleasure dog, just a good dog that runs a good medium speed. Now, pleasure dogs are going to have to be accurate, right? My honest opinion about it, a pleasure dog is going to have to be more accurate than a competition hunting dog. Now, because a lot of these competition hunting dogs, they're quick to tree, which there's nothing wrong with that, because you get your circle points, you get your strike points, and blah, 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 and you can come away with, still eking out a cast win without seeing any eyes. But the pleasure dog stuff, we're going to have us a dog that every time you cut it, it's going to tree up. It might take it very numerous amounts of time to find a tree, ranging from really quick all the way up to, hour. A pleasure dog, we're not really caring how quick they are. We're not really caring how fast they strike up. And all we're really caring about is seeing some eyes in the tree, and getting something knocked down to it, or getting out there and having a good old time. A lot of these competition hunting dogs, what they're going to be is they're going to be super high motor, and you're going to be able to just rev them out, right? So they're just essentially going to seem like they ain't ever going to quit going faster, getting more revved up, getting more locked in, getting more chop mouth. And it's like the more that you tree that night, the more they put the fire on, and the faster and the quicker that they want to go, and faster and the quicker that they want to get. Now, don't get me wrong about saying that the pleasure dog needs to be a little bit more accurate than the comp dog, because a comp dog absolutely has to be accurate. It has to be a high accurate dog too. But like a good pleasure dog is going to have to be about 95+% accurate in my book, just because that ain't no fun hunting a dog if you're pleasure hunting, if you're not seeing anything. So slick treeing and stuff like that, that dog ain't gonna have none of that. You're not gonna be able to have any type of issues arise out of a pleasure dog. Now, let's not misconstrue the fact, between a full blown dog that's already been trained and already been going for a long time, between a pup, or between a dog that's green, just starting up, because these green dogs are going to have a lot of issues, and it's going to take a lot of work to work them out. And then once we get all these issues worked out of them, then we're really going to see it. And we can kind of see each of what these dogs are going to kind of be just in them early stage training stuff. Really, really quick to strike, really, really quick to burn up a track. Don't have problem running, deep at 100 miles an hour and slamming a tree. What you're going to get here out of these comp dogs is you're going to get a lot more trees that you walk into, and you're going to go, how in the world did you put something up that tree? Because a lot of these comp dogs, dude, they're going to have so much grit in them, they're going to have so much drive in them, that they're going to have that coon so shook it's going to run up anything. Not saying you're going to see the oddball stuff out of a pleasure dog, but the pleasure dog is going to be more chill, more relaxed, not such a big, huge drive on it, and just a good nose that's going to go out there and get you a good track treat, and get a good coon treat. So that's kind of the differences that we're going to look at between a comp dog and a pleasure dog. Another one here too between the track dog or the comp dog and the pleasure dog is a lot of the comp dogs are going to be really nice handling. They got a lot of handling work put on them. I think this is where a lot of guys draw the line on that, is how do they handle, right? So a comp dog is going to be really well mannered on a leash, really easy to cut and get back, and just going to mind its p's and q's. And all in all, a competition hunting dog that's going to go places and go far is going to be a pretty solid, well put together dog, with the addition of being elite at treeing coons. The pleasure dog stuff, we're going to be really looking towards a dog that don't have a whole lot of commands on it, don't have a whole lot of leash training on it, and we're going to be kind of put in that bracket. And a lot of guys just cut it at that. They'll tree coons, but they just ain't got a handle on them. Call them a pleasure dog. But every single dog, if that's your opinion, goes through the pleasure dog stage. So even a world champion dog has went through a pleasure dog stage at some point in time. If that's the only thing that we're going to count and factor into a comp versus a pleasure dog is the handle. So we really need to look at the hunt drive and hunt speeds and strike ups and all these things. We really need to look into that when we're deciphering out a competition hunting dog between a pleasure dog. So that's some of the differences, and that's some of the stark differences that I really think that we have between the comp dogs and the pleasure dogs. To me, in my book, a good pleasure dog is going to be about a really good comp dog, but just not comp hunted, right? So that's my book about it. That's my opinion. Let me know down there in the comments, guys, what you guys think some key differences is between a comp dog and a pleasure dog. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that I like to see in a dog. All right, so some of the things that I like to see in a dog. Now, this list can go on forever, honestly. But one thing that I really like to see in a dog, without a doubt, is going to be, their voice. What kind of voice do they got? You want to have a voice on a dog that you like, a voice on a dog that you can call and you can understand and you can take cues from, and because a lot of guys, they don't know their dog so good, or it's really hard to figure them out. And if you get a dog that well, you can know when it's running trash just by how it's barking. It's treeing a little bit funny. Maybe it's got itself a possum. We have these voice. I guess everybody has a voice on a dog that they care for, they like, or whatever the case may be. But a good voice that you like is what I like to see in a dog, and that could look like anything for anybody. I kind of went over what the perfect dog would be for me in the last podcast, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I did quite a bit in the last one. Another thing that I like to see in a dog is a dog that is just going, right? They're nonstop. They're always pushing, whether that be track. They just don't like to settle down. Um, a dog that's got a lot of drive and a lot of grit to it, and some of these things that get really hard to tell the difference between. But if we cut a dog loose in the yard to let it go play around and have fun, but all it's worried about is smell and everything, that's something I really like to see in a dog. No matter what the age is, I mean, you get a hold of them dogs like that. When you want them to settle down, when you want them to shut it off, it's going to be a little bit harder to get them to shut it off and just chill out and just not. A dog that is really led by its nose is something that I really like to see. Another thing here that I really like to see in a dog is a dog that is really quick and really apt to find the up, right? To find up space. So when it's looking vertically for things or smelling vertically for things, so I like to see not so much in a winding manner, but more of a, oh, I can see up there, I can look up there, there is things above me. So that's another good thing that I like to see in a dog. And that's few and far between. Some dogs, it'd take them a year to figure it out. Other dogs are kind of just born with that ability. And them are the dogs that are going to be a little bit more natural, things like that. And that brings me to the next thing I like to see in a dog. I like to see a dog that has a huge natural potential. Now, why I say a natural potential is because they might not just be a completely natural dog, but they have traits, and you can see it when they work. You can hear them when they're running, and you can just see all the different gears turning for that dog, and they're putting things together on their own. So a dog that can put things together on its own without so much help or so much guidance or so much patience, a dog that is quick to kind of let its natural abilities talk to it, and once its instincts talk to it and let it know what's up, it kind of follows its instincts. Because 9 times out of 10, if these dogs will run on instinct, they just are so much more natural ability. Now a dog that shows a lot of this, where they're, maybe when we're feeding, they're finding the bowl with their nose first before they even see it. Uh, you know, they're really quick to jump up and bark. That's one thing too that I really like to look at in a dog. Is okay. So there's all these reactions, these natural reactions, fight or flight, right? That we get into, and when a dog has the natural reaction to bark, okay, so let's say the dog gets scared, it barks. Let's say you make a loud noise, the dog barks. Say the dog sees something out in the road, it barks. Sees a leaf blowing across, it barks. So its first reaction is always barking. This is another really good thing that I like to look for, because if a dog is first reaction to fear, pain, and curiosity, smelling something that it can't reach, any of these things, its first reaction is to bark, then we're just going to have a super breezy time. It's going to strike quick. It's going to tree good. It's going to light up the cage. It's just going to instinctually, from the very beginning, always want to use its bark. And you can't have a coon dog without a bark. And that's why some of these guys get locked into this year long, 2 year long process, waiting for a dog to go ahead and start barking the way that it should start barking, right? And now, when we get a dog that its first reaction, its natural ability is to just bark, we're not going to go through these spells to where it barks once in the woods every 6 months, or maybe it treed up something really quick and got something treed and you don't tree for a really long time. We're going to get into all these kind of tickets and all these kind of little hiccups. That's going to set us back a little bit. So that barking first instinct is always a huge thing that I like to see in a dog. Now, another thing here too that I like to see a whole lot is a dog that is not about playtime. Okay. Now, usually, if we start them off real young and we imprint them and we go through, keeping them locked in and doing the tug of war stuff and showing them the dead coons and we keep them on pace, and we kind of the dog's whole world is working from the very young age. We don't really run into that play stage so much. It's when they get idle hands and they get laid up. It was when they come out and they go, "Oh, I don't kind of know what to do. I'm just going to mess around and run around and play and have a good time. I've been pinned up, or I've been on the chain, or I ain't been doing much lately, so it's time to blow off some steam." But if we communicate to the dog, which is going to be, I'm going to kind of segue into the next thing I like seeing a dog. When we communicate to a dog in our training, that, when you see me and I bring you out, it's time to work. It's time to work. Every time that me and you kind of do anything together, it's going to be about work. We're never going to have playtime. And maybe on the off day, on the random note, we'll go out there and get them out and play with them a little bit. But then we put them back up, and then it's a break back to work. So this is me segueing into the next thing I like to see in a dog is a dog that is ready to work. Okay, so if we have built this relationship with the dog where we see it out in the kennel or it sees us and you can see it's excited, it's amped up, it's ready to come out, it's ready to do work, it's not fooling around. We get it on the leash and it's just dragging us to where we need to go. We get it out of the truck and it's dragging us in the woods like it wants to get in the woods. And if we go, okay, well, we're going to let you out of the cage. We're going to let you off the pen. We're going to let you out of the leash. And we're going straight to the woods, and we're going to cut you off in the woods. And one way that I would really like to differ playing versus working is our GPS unit or our shock system. So when we're just kind of nonchalantly messing around, having a good time, we won't throw our GPS unit on, right? Now, some guys may have to for every time that they cut the dog out or let it off leash just because the dog's that way, and it might run off on us or something like that. We ain't got a fenced in yard, but if we got a nice fenced in yard or a fenced in area or area we know our dog's not going to get off away from us and it's not going to hurt to have the GPS collar off, this would be a good time to go ahead and leave the GPS collar off and get some playtime in on the dog. But if we're going to work, we're going to throw that collar on, and we're going to associate that collar with work. We're going to associate us and our leash with work. We're going to associate us and the dog box with work. And what you'll find is these dogs will be 100 times more excited when they see the leash. They'll be 100 times more excited when they see the collar, when they hear the collar turn on. These dogs will automatically flip that switch and they'll go, "Oh yeah, it's time to go. It's time to get in the woods. It's time to go out here and bark at a cage. It's time to go out here and see a dead coon, run a drag." If we've kind of instilled this process and this familiarity with them, they will be this way. So that's one big, huge thing I like to see in a dog is a dog that is absolutely 150% ready to work at the drop of a hat. And they're idly sitting by waiting to work. And when we familiarize all the things that I outline in all my videos, all my training stuff, we're always associating positive things with training. We're always associating positive, good things. So the dog really, really looks forward to working. And when we get them down to that, it's something that you can teach, and it's something that they can kind of just have in them too. But that's one thing that you can't do without, in my book, is a dog that wants to work, wants to be around you, wants to do what you want to do, and we have to garnish and kind of feed a good relationship with the dog to get there. Okay, so some other things I like to see in a dog. I like to. We can get into physical characteristics, but I don't really want to do that because I feel like I may have offended a couple people my last podcast by doing that, by giving my personal preference on things. But one thing that I do like to see in a dog is a dog that is functional, right? They're not too club-footed. They're not, too stilt-legged. Just a dog that's functional, that, maybe it's stepping on its ears all the time, something like that. That could be an issue. Just different things. And sometimes these clod-hopping dogs, sometimes these real cumbersome dogs, they're really good dogs. They're just kind of, they got so much drive in their nose that they just can't even work their body right. That's what it seems like, is their nose is so glued to the ground they forget how to walk. which there's nothing wrong with that. That's something good to look forward. But I just my personal preference in that department. Now, a dog that's easy to talk to is another thing that I like to see in a dog. And what I mean by easy to talk to is a dog that doesn't need, a whole week of trying to teach it one command. A dog that can put two and two together and go, this means this. Okay, when I hear that, this means this. Now, when you get these dogs that have this ingrained in their head to where they're really quick to learn your commands and really quick, you're going to have such a better time. So much easier and smoother time. So that's another good thing I like to see in a dog is a dog that's really quick to learn, not too extremely smart. And I've said this too, is you get into these dogs that are brainiacs, and I'm not just saying hunting wise, right? So we can have a dog with a lot of brains when it comes down to hunting and problem solving and putting two to two together and fixing tracks and not getting skunked and things like that. A lot of brains in that department. We can also have a dog that is really um, want to think of how to say this right, is really kind of outwardly a brainiac, right? So it knows too much, right? It knows too much for its own good. It knows how different things work outside of hunting. Like, maybe it knows how the kennel door works. Maybe it knows how, you put the food bowl down every single time. It learns you, right? So it learns your behaviors, it learns your traits, and it's paying attention and it's watching and it's learning you. These dogs are the ones that are gonna give you a headache. They're gonna give you a headache. They're gonna do it on purpose, and they're just gonna give you issues. And you're gonna run into a situation when you have a dog that's very keen on learning about you. You're gonna come into a situation to where that dog is gonna, it's gonna catch you off and take it full advantage of it and split on you. It's gonna be way 10 steps ahead of you. It's gonna know, oh well, if he's calling me back, I'm not gonna come back because I know what he's doing. He's gonna put me in the truck, or I'm not gonna be here at the tree when he gets here because I'm gonna leave because I know he's coming and I don't want to go on that leash. And this goes a long way. So if we fester kind of like this bad, this bad blood with our dog or this mistrust with our dog, you can cause a dog to start doing this. You can cause a dog to start paying more attention to you and what you're doing than what it needs to be paying attention to. And that puts us back because they're always constantly worried about us and what we're doing and where we're walking, what we're looking at, and we can teach dogs bad habits on accident, or just cause ourselves headaches when a dog is too outwardly alert and too outwardly aware and just has too much brains in the people department. Now, on that same foot, what I like to see in a dog too is a dog that has a lot of brains when it comes to hunting. A dog that ain't easy to outsmart in the woods, right? So these coons, they'll pull all kind of tricks on them. They do all these different maneuvers and tricks and hide and jump and spike trees and run loops and run in holes and out the back of them and go in places the dog can't get to. And so when we get a dog that can't be fooled like that or be fooled by a coon, that's a really good one to have. And we can kind of tell what kind of time that dog has had by if we kind of are walking over at the same kind of tracks or we find ourselves kind of following behind the dog. We can go, well, this thing's giving him a run for his money, man. He's been up and down in the water and back out of the water, and he's ran through these thickets, and whatever the case may be, we can get a good sense and a good idea of a dog that's got good brains on it just by kind of where we've treed this thing at. When you walk in there and you go, oh my goodness, I don't know how you found your way up in here to get to this tree or found your way up in here to get to this spot, but you did it, or how'd you get over here when I just had to jump 4 fences or cross back and over the same fence 100 times to get here? How'd you manage to get all the way over here? So when they got a lot of good brains on them in that department to where they're not just gonna stop at wanting a coon, they're gonna figure it out too. So that's another good thing I like to see in a dog. So the last thing here, I think I've touched on what I like to see in a dog just enough. If you guys want to hear more about that, just let me know. But so the last thing here that I'm going to touch on in today's podcast is going to be the main goal in training. Now, I saved this for the end because I know all you guys that come in all the time are going to sit down, you're going to listen to this whole podcast, and this little end part is going to be more for you guys, just because I know you guys have been following along my content for a long time. I mean, it's for everybody, but I think it's going to, put things in perspective for a lot of my viewers, a lot of my subscribers that are here for a long time. So the main goal in training is obviously a dog that you can cut loose and it's going to run in the woods and it's going to strike a track, push a track, hit a tree up, and when you get the coon down to it, it's going to light the coon up and just go to town and do work. Okay, so it's very hard to wrap your mind around the steps that it takes to go from a pup to that. And that's why on my channel I have so many in-depth things. I have so many videos entailing this, and I have more that's going to come out. And we're going to keep on going over this stuff because at the end of the day, there is so many things that we can do to get from point A to point B. Now, why I say point A to point B instead of point A to point Z is because we're just trying to get to them first few trees. We're trying to get a nice solid thing on them. We're going through the first big step. But it's hard to go from point A to point B if we don't really understand how the best time it is to spend our time and what exactly it is that we need to be looking for in the dogs when we are training them. Okay, so main thing number one, what we're going to be looking for while training, we're going to be looking for a dog that is, we need to get the dog to a place of relentlessness. Okay, and what I mean by that is we need to take the dog from a dog that's going to quit something, maybe bark at it once or twice and give it up, not go too hard after it, not be so consumed by this idea of hunting. And we need to take that dog and have it completely transfixed and completely relentlessly after a coon, right? So and these, you can see this on a lot of different things. The dog just absolutely would bust out of a pen, bust off a cage, or bust off a leash, bust a collar just to get a piece of a coon. We need to get it to that level, and we need to get the barks right. So this is one thing that sets a lot of people back. This set me back for quite a few dogs, is not getting the dog to bark its full potential while we're training, right? And we can kind of just naturally let the dog do whatever it's going to do and not, give it any hints and not give it any clues and not push it in a direction one way or the other and just kind of take what we get. That's one way to do it, but the other way to do it is to get that dog and just get it completely invested and completely relentlessly searching and seeking, and it's on sight, right? If it smells it, if it sees it, it is just going into that rabid mode. It wants that coon. It wants to run it down. It wants to bark at it. It wants to chew it up. It wants to do all these things. These are all main goals of our training and taking the dog from a green dog to a hunting dog, right? So the bark thing is huge. So another thing here too is we can get a dog to bark by having it on the leash constantly and leashing it back. I preach use the leash and leash it back to get the first initial barks and get the first initial, full-blown chop out of that dog. And then once we get the dog locked into it, we can cut them off and we can kind of know and trust that the dog is now locked in and it's going to keep giving us the bark. It's going to keep working, and we have it, and it's malleable, and we can drop the leash. A lot of times what I do is I'll just drop the leash and leave the leash on the dog, and that way I can pick the leash up really quick if it does want to kind of act up. And not only that, on the ground stuff, like the ground bark and stuff, but the treeing. So this is, I think, some of probably the easiest stuff to comprehend and understand, that a coon dog has to be able to tree you coons. So when we miss that step in training, And we're sitting there scratching our head forever and ever and ever. Why won't this dog tree? Why won't this dog tree? Why won't he tree? Well, he probably needs tree work. So when we're talking about the treeing stuff here, is the main goal is a dog that is going to just hammer down, a dog that like I could leave right now and come back, and this dog is still going to be sitting here barking up this tree for this cage. It's still going to be barking up this tree for this coon, right? And that's another thing too. A main goal in training is the independence, right? The dog, you have to build the independence in the dog in such a way that it does not need you to tell it to do it. Because this is another thing that happens too, and we get kind of stuck in this sense of the dog is so reliant on being told, or you being there to reassure it, you being there to kind of give it permission to go ahead and do it. But that's why building through these processes little by little, we wean the dog off of us and needing our approval to do things. And it's not going to go to the tree, look up the tree, and then run back to us and go, "Did I do good?" No, you need to stay over there and you need to bark up that tree. And then we also need a dog that is not going to wait for us to show up to start barking. And we have to start peeling ourselves back out of our training too. So that's another main goal of training is the independence thing. All these things are go hand in hand with everything, and I think I'll make a couple of separate videos on a couple of these. If you're the guy that wanted the comp dog and the pleasure dog differences, I hope I wrap some of that stuff up for you there. You walker dog guys, I greatly appreciate walker dogs. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys. I ran walker dogs for quite a few years, and I was just completely all involved in them. Eventually, I went back and got myself more blue dogs, and I tried to plot dogs a little bit, and I had an English dog for a while. And I just got out there and I just got invested and consumed by the world of coon hunting, and I wanted to try different things. I want to try different dogs. I got in the woods with different people that hunted different ways, and once you get a hold of coon hunting gets a hold of you, it kind of eats you up. And we need to do our due diligence to not just be so one-minded. I know a lot of guys, they'll talk smack on these other dog breeds and actually really be real hateful and mean about it. At the end of the day, I think if we're all coon hunters and we all like a dog to tree a coon, this is definitely going to be something huge that we need to get behind. Is it doesn't matter what color your dog is. If it's going to tree a coon, it's going to tree a coon. And these comp hunting guys, let's stop looking at these pleasure hunting dogs and these pleasure hunting guys like they're the enemy. Because at the end of the day, if we get more of the pleasure hunting dog guys, more of the guys that are kind of out on a wayside, maybe trying to just get in or have a dog that they've had for a while and had been running it for a while, and we get them down the knowledge to get up to the competition hunting level, and we start behaving ourselves the way we should in the comp world. A lot more of these pleasure hunting dogs and a lot more of these pleasure hunting guys will come out and get out to these competition hunts, and they will get in the world. Everybody says coon hunting's a dying sport. Coon hunting's a dying sport, and I think it's a lot to do with the competition hunting mentality, and that is everything's top secret. You don't ever tell nobody what you got going on. You don't tell anybody how you got a dog doing this, and we keep our secrets and our good things to ourselves. That way we can win more comp hunts. And then that turns into, less guys learning, less guys having dogs that go, less guys going to competition hunts. And then on the flip side of that, we got the guys that just make it a real pain in the neck, just real kind of jerk offish. When we get out on these casts and they act a fool, they want to argue and fight, and they just don't have the acceptance of, maybe they're getting a loss, maybe somebody's going to get a point ahead on them or something like that. We need to kind of stay away from that kind of idea and go more into the involving people idea, because coon hunting is a fantastic sport inside of and outside of comp hunting and pleasure hunting. It doesn't matter. It's just one of them sports that have been around for a extremely long time. We have dogs that are exclusively bred just to do this, and we don't want to not have these dogs get worked and these dogs find homes and get into hunting hands and be hunted the right ways and treated the right way. Because all in all, if the dogs die off or the dogs, get a bad rap put on them, it's going to be a lot harder to get guys to comp hunt. It's going to be a lot harder to get guys to pleasure hunt and to take up coon hunting and things like that. But that's today's Talking Dogs podcast. Hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me for about the past 50 minutes. And keep them treed, guys. Don't forget to use promo code Melbrook5 at Dogtra.com for a 5% discount off a Dogtra product, $200 or more. Shocking systems, GPS systems, the whole thing. And if anybody wants to contact me here at the channel, feel free to use the email, and that is melbrookstudios@gmail.com. That's all lowercase letters. I'm there. You guys hit me up. I will get back a hold of you guys. And I just want to give a huge shout out to all the guys that have used that. I have had a lot of people thanking me and a lot of success with my videos and helping people out, and I hope I can continue on doing that for you guys, and hope we can keep that rolling and keep that feeling and of the togetherness. I got you guys' back. You guys have my back. That's awesome. Let's have a good one.